Welcome back to Behind the Print podcast, where we feature industry leaders and uncover the creative minds and their businesses within the world of professional printing. Our mission is to provide you with actionable, inspiring resources that not only elevate your business projects, but accelerate your journey to excellence in profit and print. Today's episode is Reinvention of the Wheel, literally. And I'm here today with Shark Wheel CEO and co founder, Zack Fleishman.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Zach, who's your primary customer base and how do Shark Wheels cater to their needs?
Yeah, great question. We have a long-winded answer for who is our primary customer base because we're in so many different industries. We started off in skateboarding. It was a low barrier to entry, and there was a lot of reasons why we wanted to start off in skateboarding to have social media content and so forth. So skateboarding since day one has been our primary audience. However, in the background, secretly, we were really an R&D company trying to figure out how to build our crazy shaped wheel and how to figure out how to manufacture it. So not only how to make it, but actually how to make it perform better than a traditional wheel. And that took many years to figure it out for many different applications. So our biggest market currently is in agriculture. So I'm guessing that we're the only company that's ever been in skateboarding and in agriculture. But those are our two key industries, and we're actually entering into wheelchairs next week, forklifts and pallet jacks next month, and into a wide variety of other applications as well.
That is so exciting, such a wide expansion. So, how exactly do you help skaters and other businesses and industries?
So it's a great question. If you've ever watched a BASF commercial, they always end in, we don't make a lot of the products you buy, but we make a lot of the products you buy better. And that's kind of what we are. So we're a component part that works on countless applications, well over 100 different industries, where we can make your product not only perform better, which of course is the most important, but from a business's standpoint, from a partnership standpoint, we have a marketing advantage. We have a square looking wheel. It doesn't even look like it would roll. Forget about it working better, but it actually doesn't even look like it would work. So we have like an unheard of click through rate. People see a square looking wheel, they have to click on it. And then when you start talking about, products that people buy at retail in person, there's nothing better than watching somebody walk down the aisle, see our product and make a crazy face, have to interact with it. They just don't understand how it works. And that's an advantage and a disadvantage because it also requires an education on how it even rolls, let alone how it works.
Right. So you mentioned it being a little bit square, and I've seen your wheels, and I actually skateboard myself. So I have a set of shark wheels on my current
Cool.
skateboard that I love. But can you walk us through the innovation behind shark wheels and how exactly they improve performance compared to traditional round wheels?
Sure. So that's where I guess I start bringing out some of my props that I brought here. So this is one of the first wheels that we ever made. And this shape is just kind of a toy to show as a display, but nonetheless, it shows the shape. So this is a very cubic shape. It's perfectly dead flat on six sides, so it fits into a box where it touches all six sides of the box flat. Some people think it's kind of an optical illusion. It's not. It's perfectly cubic, but it's also perfectly spherical. So as it rolls, it actually copies how things in nature move. And that's where the shark wheel was born. It was born from a scientific discovery. So actually everything in nature moves in a sine wave. The way that radio waves, ocean waves move, the twist of a DNA helix is a sine wave, the way the planets move around the sun, even how you walk. You don't even think about it, but you walk right, left, right, left. And it's a more balanced form of motion. So this wheel moves right, left, right, left. A lot of people think it's going to actually go to the right and then go to the left. It goes perfectly straight. So the same way that you can walk on a tightrope, right, left, or walk just normally down the street, right, left, you're going straight, but you're waving at the same time. And the same way a snake's head stays straight, but its body waves, it's again, it's seen all throughout nature. And it's called a shark wheel because it's the exact same shape as a shark's jaw. So if you Google what does a shark jaw look like, you will see this exact shape.
Wow, that is really cool. It's so connected to nature in a way that's almost industrial.
Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
think the wave part is what sets you apart from other wheel competitors?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean that's our secret sauce, and it has many inherent advantages. So if you're familiar with the term biomimicry, a lot of groundbreaking inventions or products are copying nature. That's what we have done. So those inherent advantages, they're fascinating. Just to give you one example of many, I can tell you that our agriculture wheel, for example, so we're in what's called center pivot irrigation. It's what irrigates most of the farmlands in the entire United States. It's those moving circular sprinkler systems. So when you fly over the Midwest and you see all the crop fields, that's center pivot irrigation. And so what happens is a normal wheel, there's two wheels in tandem, so one in front, one in the back, and they water the soil, of course, and the soil turns to this thick mud, and these 10,000 pounds of machinery on top of the wheels dig what they call ruts in the soil or their trenches into the soil. And they just keep going around in circles, and the trenches just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And it causes, long story short, it causes farmers to lose a lot of money. And it's a massive headache. It's just a huge issue in the industry. So Shark Wheel comes in, and our front wheel moves left, right, left, and it digs a small trench. But our secret is the back wheel moves the opposite, right, left, right, and it actually repairs the rut. So we dig a rut, we repair the rut. We dig a rut, we repair the rut. So it's one example of many of how this simple geometry change has a real life reason to exist. It actually is a solution to the biggest problem in center pivot irrigation. And we've been fortunate enough to partner with Bridgestone Firestone, number one tire company in the world. They'd never sold an airless tire in the history of the company until our wheel. And we're partnered with the other industry leaders as well. Ranke's our big partner. And so we're very excited that we have this great product. But again, it's all based on nature. There's a reason why it works so well. And just to give you one random example, just because for some reason it jumped in my head, something that we posted on Instagram years ago. It's just very random, but in England, they'll build brick walls, and they realize that they could save a lot of bricks and not use so many bricks if they made the walls in a sine wave shape. So you might think that, when you wave, it would increase the amount of bricks, but actually it's a much stronger structure. When you put a straight wall of bricks, you have to have three bricks going across. And in a sine wave wall, you only need one. It's much stronger. So it's an example of, again, using a sine wave to increase strength. There's using a sine wave to increase other things as well, but those are just a couple examples.
That is super, super cool. So, how did you get into the farming and agriculture section for Shark Wheels?
They came to us, literally. So we aired on what was the most watched episode ever of Shark Tank. It was the season finale of season 6. And 48 hours later, we walked to our office and there's two farmers standing at our door. And we're like, hey, can we help you? And they're like, we're pretty sure you guys solved the biggest issue in all of center pivot irrigation. And we're like, awesome. What's center pivot irrigation? So that's how we stumbled into it. They literally flew out to meet with us. And I guess that's the power of Shark Tank is instead of us, sounding like crazy people and cold calling and say, "Hey, we have a square wheel. You want to use it?" They actually came to us. And so that ended up starting a process of, R&D for us, and we entered the market that way. Once we realized, when you have a wheel company, you're like, well, there's like a million different things that have wheels. Where do you start? And the answer to that question typically is, well, where do they really need a solution?
That's really cool. So, you've been on Shark Tank. What was the wildest part of that experience that people might not know? And for other small brands looking to get noticed, what advice could you maybe get them on landing big opportunities in media coverage?
Yeah, that's a big question. So I'll answer the first part first. So Shark Tank, just a quick behind the scenes thing that for me personally was the hardest part. as most people know, you do that opening pitch that sometimes has some comedy built in or some engaging, fun to watch pitch before the real presentation starts. And so for, I don't know, 2 months or so, we were working with the producers and, I just practiced my lines over and over. I probably had 4 sentences, which is not a lot, is 4 sentences. But I just drilled it so many times that I didn't even have to think about it. I had it down perfectly. It's just 4 sentences. And I guess my strong point is not memorizing stuff. I like to know stuff and be able to talk about it, but I'm not good at just like pure memorization. And so anyway, so I had it down pat. And 48 hours before you film, you do a dry run of it in front of producers for the first time, like the executive producers. And so we did the whole pitch, and they said, you know what? My lines, I was on there with my business partner, who's the actual inventor. I run the business side, but David Patrick is the actual brains. He's the inventor behind the shape. So David's lines all stayed the same. My lines, that for whatever reason they didn't like the lines, they said we're not conveying the message that we're trying to convey. So they changed all my lines. And of course I was like, oh yeah, sure, no problem, whatever we need to do. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be on national TV in 48 hours. And I have to get these 4 sentences out of my head and 4 new sentences in my head, or they're completely different. And I was freaking out. So that part was the only part for me that was an issue. Doing the pitch and talking to them, I know my company inside and out. That wasn't a problem. I wasn't nervous talking to them. It was just all my lines changed. So that was the only part that was scary. And actually one other part jumped to my mind is that we were backstage and they said, you're the next company, but they're taking a short break, probably be like 10 minutes or something. And so I was just kind of getting ready for that, going over my lines again, making sure I had it. And in less than 1 minute, all of a sudden on the loudspeaker, it said 10, 9, 8. And I was like, whoa, wait, we're going out right now. I thought I had 10 minutes. And then the doors just open. And that part was freaky because they totally caught me off guard. I was not mentally prepared to just walk out and do it. And they tell you about 1,000 times that there are no retakes. If you mess up, you mess up. That's just what it is. No matter what, there's no retakes. So it was just all systems go once we started walking.
Well, that's nerve-wracking. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I definitely would have been put on the spot there too. So, what has been the most unexpected marketing campaign or strategy that Shark Wheels has used to gain attention?
I think that we have, we're very fortunate in that regard. Again, we have such a weird, crazy product that we were able to ride a free wave of media for such a long time. So I think we're very unique and fortunate in that regard. We were just on countless different media. We were on countless different media things before we even had a product to sell. Because we launched through a Kickstarter campaign and it took us a year to figure out how to even make the product. Like we just had an idea when we launched it. It was just an idea. So we were on the Discovery Channel for reinventing the wheel. We're on all these things, and it's like we actually didn't even ship a product yet, So
Right,
so we
yeah,
had all
so
this attention. So in terms of like advice for other companies starting out, how do you stand out, or how do you know, that's a difficult thing. I think Kickstarter is one of those vehicles that could be good, but unfortunately, a lot of Kickstarter campaigns fail because people think they click the button and things are going to happen. And really, just like anything else in life, it takes a lot of hard work. It's just really a numbers game. So if you contact 1 million people, only 400 might show up to look at the link, and you just have to play a numbers game and just grind, grind, grind. There's different avenues to go. You could use a PR firm. You can do it grassroots style and just guerrilla marketing type things. I think it all depends on your budget if you're raising money. But what that does go into, that I would consider myself at least a quasi expert in, is equity crowdfunding. So for small businesses that are starting out that are having trouble getting funding, which you can't do anything big without, or at least it's extraordinarily hard doing anything without proper funding, is raising money online. So Obama, through the Jobs Act, made investing online legal for the first time, which was amazing. And that opened up a whole new world of being able to raise money through the average person, where before you had to have certifications, you had to go through VCs, and you had to learn that whole game, which is not a fun game to learn. And most companies come out on the wrong end of the stick when dealing with the VC type investors. So this allowed small companies to go through the average person to invest, and it allowed the average person to be able to potentially hit a home run with a company like ours, where they could get in at the ground level. And anyway, so equity crowdfunding is an incredible way to go to raise money online. And that's probably what I would suggest new companies starting out is to look at raising capital, because I think they say most companies fail because they're undercapitalized. So I think it's probably the most important thing to do before you do anything is to make sure you have enough money in the bank to hire the right team to make the right moves, um, or otherwise it's going to be an uphill battle.
Right.
So
Yeah, so other small businesses out there, check out equity crowdfunding. That could be a great option for you. So tell me, how does Shark Wheels use print, Zach?
yeah, so we used it very recently within the past 1 to 2 weeks to market to the agriculture industry. So we did send out a mass mailing to many different contacts that we have around the United States. And it's just a powerful tool to receive beautiful print. We sent a whole catalog in the mail to strong leads of ours around the United States. And I think today more than ever, it's more important to do that because the so much of the world has moved to digital that I don't get anything in my mailbox anymore. And that's where you can really stand out. So instead of 10 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago, having your mailbox filled to the top with countless things, now it's gone the other way. So I think when the scales tip like they have, I think it becomes a fantastic form of marketing to go to print and to be able to do that. So that's just one of the ways that we utilize print. Another is just simply through our normal marketing materials when we do trade shows, whether it be business cards, whether it be giveaways, handouts, user guides, catalogs, and so forth. We do a lot of print business to help us on the marketing side.
That's really cool, and I'm glad you used print. We love seeing your prints come through the shop.
Absolutely.
So tell me some of the key milestones or breakthrough moments that have defined Shark Wheels.
Yeah, I think we've had several milestones along the way, whether it be scientific testing. That was a big one. When we started out, it's like, okay, well, you say it works well, so prove it. So that was a huge milestone where we have, university testing, lab testing, real world test results that showed it. That was a big milestone. The biggest milestone was figuring out how to make the wheel. If we couldn't even make the wheel, it's one thing to make it, and then it's another thing to make it at a price competitive way where, it's like, yeah, you can make our wheel, but what if it costs 10 times the amount? Nobody's going to buy it. So that's what took us a year is to figure out how do we make our crazy wheel at roughly the same cost as everybody else. So that was a huge milestone. Then the scientific testing was a big milestone. Then the IP, so locking up the intellectual property and getting patents and trademarks, that was a huge milestone. So it's like now you're starting to have, you know, not only the security of your company, but you're having the proof points of why people should buy. And then people are like, okay, so supposedly it works well. You got the IP and you know how to make it at a good price. But if it works so well, why aren't the big companies buying it? And it's like, that's the next big milestone. So that's what we did. So then we can say, we can name drop now. So we have Bridgestone Firestone, number one tire company in the world, Fortune 500 company. Shark Wheels now sell on U.S. military deployment bags. Shark Wheels sell on Samsonite luggage, number one luggage company in the world. We just lost the license for it, but we've been selling on PGA Tour golf bags for the past 2+ years. We just did a deal with Spyder. They're the number one brand in snow and ski. So we have a deal now with Spyder. We're on Harley Davidson products. So we tend to try to align ourselves with the industry leaders of each industry we enter into. And that's kind of our our thing because we're so weird and wild looking that it's like we need that stamp of approval from these big brands that want to do business with us. So it's like we have many different layers of validation now. We have IP validation, we have big brands want to do business with us validation, we have scientific testing validation, we have intellectual property. So those were those big milestones to get us where we are.
And those are huge. Those are awesome to hear about. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
So, on the flip side, what are some challenges holding Shark Wheels back right now?
Every day is difficult. It's never easy. So no matter how many deals we sign, no matter what's happening in the company, everything's always difficult. Markets go down, markets go up. Agriculture actually had a really down year last year. I think it was down 30%. There was hundreds or thousands of jobs lost across all the big companies. That's a big challenge. It's out of our control. And then you look at consumer side. So if you look at like roller skates, skateboards, scooters, and that bicycles, even you had peak sales, like historic sales during COVID, where everyone wanted to get outdoors and sales were through the roof. And then it literally went the other way. So people thought, or not people, but businesses like Walmart, Target, all the way down to all the mom and pop shops thought that was the new normal. And so everybody over ordered significantly. The biggest distributor in the United States for skateboards took their indoor skate park and filled it to the brim with inventory. And then the sales fell off a cliff, literally off a cliff. And so the entire industry has been down for like 3 years now, where Walmart, for example, cut their shelf space for scooters, skateboards over 75%, just to give you one metric. And the industry is just down. So they have to move through inventory, and moving through inventory has been historically slow. So you have this crazy peak and then this massive drop. And then it's trying to, find normal, but normal probably won't happen for another 18 months. Who knows? But anyway, these markets, they're all cyclical and they'll all come back, but there's just ups and downs.
So, between the ups and downs, what is a key leadership or business tip that you've learned that you wish you would have known when you started Shark Wheels?
Wow, that would be a long list. There's a lot. The first thing that comes to my mind is a tough one to say out loud, but at the same time, it's very important. I've been to many different, whether it's seminars, conferences, so many different things, and there's always keynote speakers, and I typically just don't like those speeches, and I don't like listening to that. I don't seem to usually take any golden nuggets away, except for one time. There was one guy that he started careerbuilder.com, and his name's Rob McGovern, and he gave a great speech. And he was talking about raising money, that he was the first company that had attachments in email. And it was a concept. It didn't exist yet. But his whole business model was built off of attaching a PDF file in an email, and that it was going to revolutionize the whole industry, where he was going to provide job. Anyway, it was all predicated on this. So he was 0 for 60 pitching venture capitalists. They're like, yeah, but it doesn't exist. You're trying to pitch, it doesn't, well, what is it? What do you mean an attachment? Doesn't even make sense. What are you talking about? And so nobody could understand it. There was no vision. They just look at numbers on a piece of paper. They don't see it. And anyway, so Career Builder ended up being a ridiculously massive company. And one of the things that this guy said in his speech, he said, look, it's hard to say, but what it is that if you want to build a great company, typically you have to have a revolving door of people that work at your company until you really find the right fit. And he said people typically keep underperforming employees for too long, and they don't get the production and the passion and the energy that they need. And one of the things that worked for him was going and hiring and firing until he found the right fits. And that again is a very tough thing to say, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of truth in that statement based on my experience and everything else. So that's one, I think, nugget of information starting out. Another is making sure you're well capitalized with the equity crowdfunding is one path to go down. There's many other things that I wish I knew as well. I'll tell you one of them might be the best one is we funded a large part of our farming wheel development through a government grant through the National Science Foundation. And the National Science Foundation they did a huge actually the study I can't remember if they did it or if there's a professor at Stanford, his name's Steve Blank, and he created this system where the United States vision of a business plan is backwards, and he has all the data to prove it. And the general idea of a business plan is, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my product. And then now that I have my product, now here's how I'm going to market it and here's how I'm going to do it. And it's exactly backwards. And that's why so many businesses fail. And so what they teach you through the National Science Foundation, which is technically Steve Blank's program, it's called the I-Core program, and it's fantastic. And what it does is it says before you build anything, before you spend one penny of money, what you need to do is customer discovery interviews. And it's a fancy way of saying talk to people, find out if what in your brain is really a good idea or not, and find out how much they're willing to pay for it. Because you can't go out, develop a cool product, and then have a price, and then people are just not willing to pay that price, and your company goes out of business. You can't do that. You have to work backwards, and you have to say, you have to do hundreds, a couple hundred interviews and say, what do you need in this product? What do you need? And what do you want? What's a want? Well, it'd be nice to have. And what do you need? So if you were to stop using so and so product and move to mine, what would you need to do to make that happen? This is before you spend a penny. And it's genius because you have the full foundation of everything, including what price will they pay before you even think about starting that company. So I think that that was one of possibly the biggest thing that I ever learned was that what you're taught traditionally in a business plan is literally backwards.
That's a great insight. I've never heard of that before. And what was the course that you were talking about?
I-Core program, it's the letter I dash CORPS. And people can look it up and take it, and it's an amazing course. If you wanted to not take the course, you could probably just get the general idea of it on ChatGPT and get the cliff notes and then go out and put it to use. But it's hard to underestimate how important it is. People are so excited about their little pet toy and their little invention. Ooh, I invented this. Like, who cares? Inventions, ideas, they're a dime a dozen. But you have to know if it's actually going to be a viable company. Is it going to be? And you could have a fantastic idea of the answer if you do it right.
That's great insight for any business.
Yeah, it
So
really is.
tell me, what's next for Shark Wheels?
Next week is what's next, which is the Abilities Expo in Los Angeles, and we launch our wheelchair caster. So, of all the emails that I got after we aired on Shark Tank, it was a wide range, but I would say probably the most common email that we ever received was from wheelchair users or families of wheelchair users saying, "Could you please make this for our industry?" And took us more time than I'd like to admit to get there, but we did it, and we're launching. So that's literally what's next is giving a better riding experience to people that are in wheelchairs. The front caster is what comes into contact with an obstacle first. And our wheels have proven obstacle avoidance. So our wheels move like a snake around objects instead of steamrolling over them. And there's many other advantages. We have 57% less rolling resistance, scientifically proven. So wheelchair users typically have shoulder pain from having to push a lot. And so if you can reduce their rolling resistance, then you can give them a much better, experience and less pain. And there's other advantages as well, but that's our next launch.
I'm so glad you're in that industry. It seems like a lot of people talk about how wheelchairs could be improved and how people with disabilities could be aided in additional ways that just are overlooked a lot of the times.
Mhm.
So that is super, super cool that you're in that industry.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, we're excited to very excited.
So jumping ahead in time, where do you
Yep.
see the company in 10 years?
Wow, there's so many different paths that it could go down. Certainly, one of them is taking the company public. I think that this type of company would be perfect for the public markets. That's one path. Since day one, though, the general idea was people didn't know they had a choice in their wheels. They didn't even know that was a thing that existed. It was just, well, it's just a wheel, but they didn't know that they had a choice. And this is the first time ever that they've had a choice. And it's almost like the way that I've looked at it is every industry always has room for two. There's Coke, there's Pepsi. Pepsi's never going to be as big as Coke. That's okay. That's fine. But hey, you have that option. Or there's infinite examples of that. There's always room for two. And we want to be the Pepsi to the circular wheels Coca-Cola, and we want to have consumers have that option for the first time. And one of our strategies on how to do that is to introduce kids at a young age to a shark wheel, so it's not so crazy. And we have kids line of products that we've sold for years at Walmart, and that's with that long-term strategic vision. But that's really where we see ourselves in 10 years is you, whether it's going to buy a stroller, whether it's going to whatever it is, it could be industrial, where whether it's mining equipment or even on an airplane or on car tires, or so we want to give consumers an option.
That's awesome. Really, really cool. Starting them from a young age is a great idea too, getting them in their brain, getting them familiar with the shark wheels, and then when they see it later on, they won't be so surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'd love to hear more about your journey. You are a top-ranked professional tennis player. What led you from the world of competitive sports to co-founding an innovative wheel company?
Um, hmm. Yeah, good question. So my past life, it feels like, was tennis. At 12 years old, I decided that I wanted to be a pro tennis player, and I dropped every other sport and played tennis every day. So I ended up having a good career, but I got hurt the week that I reached my career high ranking, which was tough to swallow. I got up to number 11 in the United States, and I got up to 127 in the world. And then I got severely hurt. I've had four shoulder surgeries and everything. But what happened was that Shark Wheel became it's like business became my new sport. So I look at everything through that lens, and it was like my new way to be competitive, to work hard, to have horse blinders on and be so focused on one goal. And to, it was like learning a new language for me, but it was really the same thing. It was just like my new sport. And that's kind of just how I always looked at it. But I think I was able to take a lot of the lessons from tennis and use them to my advantage in the business world at Shark Wheel. It's hard to find somebody that has the work ethic of a pro athlete that says, look, I'm going to do this as hard as I can. Everything I do, I'm going to try to win everything. It's like, it's almost too much. But if it's channeled in the right way, you can always do that. Tennis being the only sport in the world where there's no coaching allowed. It's not allowed. So you have to learn how to be your own coach, and you have to work your way through difficult situations all by yourself. There's no time limit in tennis. You can always come back. So you have to learn to never give up. And the list just goes on and on. So I think it gave me a lot of tools that I could use for the business world.
Yeah, from what I was seeing and from what you've said, passion and perseverance go hand in hand, and it sounds like you've had both of those alongside your tennis career and Shark Wheels. But what was a crazier feeling, winning a tough match or seeing your product take off?
It's different and the same. It's hard to explain, but they're both very rewarding in different ways. I can tell you at Shark Wheel, because we did several equity crowdfunding rounds, technically we have a team of 2,000 investors now, which is crazy. But when I'm playing tennis, it was just myself. So now I feel in a good and bad way, I have a burden on my shoulders to make sure that I help this company reach its potential and deliver a great return for our investors, where I didn't have that in tennis. It was just myself. So that would be a difference between the two, the responsibility there. But in terms of the emotion, I would say it's very similar. When you have a big win, a win's a win, and as they say. And so it's a similar emotion.
It's cool. So if you had a day to spend completely free however you like, what would you choose to do?
Pretty much anything but tennis. I spent my life doing it every day. So it's funny, people ask me, "Oh, are you going to the local pro tournament in Indian Wells, California? You're going to go there?" I'm like, that's actually the last thing that was on my list that weekend. But that's about the last thing that I would think about doing. But no, I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're getting heavily into sports, and it's very fun to watch them succeed. I got to watch my son get player of the game and hit a home run and two triples in the past week, and that was really fun. And get to see my daughter score 6 goals in a soccer game, and that's really fun. And that's kind of my weekends now.
That's awesome. It's so fun to just watch them grow up.
Yeah.
So tell me, how can our listeners get in touch with you, learn more, or purchase Shark Wheels?
Yeah, we have several different websites because we're in so many different industries. We started at sharkwheel.com, which is our skateboarding site. And literally this week, I believe it might have even gone live yesterday, is sharkwheel.net. And that's supposed to be our industrial site. You can't even purchase anything on it because it went live just having something there as of yesterday, but you'll see it has many different products that are going to be sold very soon. And then we have Sharkwheel Ag, sharkwheelag.com, which is our agriculture company. Yeah, there's always a contact us form through those pages.
Awesome. So you guys heard him. Check him out, Shark Wheel Ag, sharkwheel.com. But that's a wrap on another episode of Behind the Print podcast. Thanks to our listeners for joining us as we have explored the innovation and artistry of the printing world. Remember, having a strong vision, building the right strategy, and using tools like print to amplify your message will make you stand out from the crowd. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to stop by printingcenterusa.com and get your free sample pack to share with your business enthusiasts. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying, and remember, there's always more to discover behind the print.